Hello, my name is Miles McClellan. I'm pleased to provide this very brief video on a course dealing with wrongful convictions and miscarriages of justice. I'm going to share my PowerPoint in that regard just to give you an overview of what this is going to contain. So wrongful convictions and miscarriages of justice have been described as the civil rights movement of the 21st century. There really isn't any other specific area of criminal justice reform that has received as much attention internationally than this particular field. I've taught this course for the last 10 years, fundamentally, of course, based on Canadian content, but that content can be, transferred globally because virtually every common law jurisdiction and a lot of civil law jurisdictions, in fact, treat this issue in the same manner. And the way they treat it is to look at essentially what are referred to as the systemic causes of wrongful convictions, and they've been recognized internationally to be the following. Firstly, of course, we have tunnel vision being a situation where police officers who are investigating a crime will focus on the person that they believe to be guilty of the offense and will look only towards evidence that points to that guilt, and often they will ignore evidence that in fact leads away from that finding of guilt. Mistaken identification is the number one cause of wrongful convictions. In 80% of the recognized cases, it involved a mistaken ID by a witness at the scene of the crime, or in fact, the victim of the crime. So identification is a very weak form of evidence in this regard. Secondly, we have false confessions. So about 25% of all wrongful conviction cases have false confessions. As counterintuitive as it may seem, that people who are in fact factually innocent would plead guilty, it indeed does take place almost always as a result of an abusive police interrogation. We have what are referred to as jailhouse snitches, testimony from rats, right? And this is again a very troublesome mode of evidence to in fact produce to lead to somebody's guilt. What we're talking about here, in fact, is somebody who is in prison with somebody who's been accused of a crime and who will in fact testify that they have whoever is accused of the crime has in fact admitted to the crime. So these types of confessions are incredibly problematic. Inadequate defense counsel is a systemic cause, and obviously it's exactly what it sounds like. Someone who has defended an accused who eventually ends up being exonerated has in fact done so poorly and not provided a proper defense. Faulty forensic science is the last systemic cause that is universally recognized. There are a number of forensic methods of testing that are incredibly faulty. Bite mark evidence, tread mark evidence, fiber evidence, all of these are seen to be junk science. In fact, where in fact it is highly, highly unreliable and has led to, in fact, thousands of convictions that in fact never should have taken place. And this includes DNA. And although DNA is the gold standard for either acquitting or convicting somebody of a crime, what it is only as good as the information that goes into it and the information that is processed. So DNA labs have been found to have done poor jobs, resulting in convictions that in fact were wrongful, that should not have been. And the last issue, of course, is compensation. So, beyond the systemic causes, compensation is there for those who have been exonerated and, need a way to essentially rebuild a life. So all I can tell you at this stage of the game is that I've taught this course again for a decade or so. I've done it in person, but I've also done it synchronously and asynchronously. So there really isn't any method of delivery that I can't, in fact, do for the purposes of a course on academia research. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'd be pleased to answer them at your convenience.